Okay, Patty, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Christy. So we will call the May 18th, 2020 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting to order. We have minutes from our last meeting, which was actually February of 2020, to approve. Did everybody receive the minutes and have a chance to look at them?
Yeah,
Yes,
Any changes, suggested changes, or is there a motion to approve?
I move to approve.
I'll second.
Who seconded that?
Nicole.
Okay. Patty,
Aye.
Nancy,
Aye.
Nicole,
Aye.
Judy,
I apologize. I don't have them in front of me. I think I was not at that meeting.
okay.
What was the date?
February 20th, I believe you were not here either.
Yeah, I was not. So I'll abstain.
Okay. And Wendy,
Aye. I think I was.
And then, so we had two items on the agenda. One is just sort of a text issue that came up that Harry discovered. And then also this lot consolidation on Solither Lane. Was there a presenter for Solither Lane, Christy?
There is, and I have 7 attendees in the room. I can allow all attendees to talk. Dennis Marino is the presenter, so I'm going to move Dennis to become a panelist
Okay,
so he can join the board and be a presenter. And then any attendees that are in attendance who'd like to speak during the meeting, there should be a button for you to raise your hand, and I can identify that within my screen. I can also unmute you at any time to make public comments. There's also a question and answer option at the bottom of the screen, depending on how you logged on to the meeting. So you can raise your hand, you can submit a question, and at some point, Patty, you let me know when you'd like me to unmute all attendees, and then we'll allow anyone to speak. I'll just ask that anyone who'd like to speak will identify themselves by first name, last name, and address.
okay, sounds good.
Dennis, are you in as a panelist? Let me see if Dennis is in. Dennis?
He's in.
It just shows that he's muted, I believe. Nope.
Let me take a look at the settings. Nope.
Nope,
Yeah,
there he
I'm not seeing him at all.
There
I
he
see-
is. Try hitting the mute button twice, Dennis, and it might work again. One more time.
okay.
Yes, we can hear you now, or I can.
Yeah, I can hear him.
Dennis, one more sound check, please.
Oh, no, I can't hear
I
him.
cannot hear you.
I don't hear him and I don't see him either.
I can see him, but I can't hear him.
And Dennis, you are, on my end as a moderator, you are unmuted. So it may be a connection issue on your end.
Oh, no.
Can you call in, Christy?
You can. I'm going to pull up the number right now. If
I've
Rob,
got it.
On your agenda, could you scroll it down a little bit so the phone number to call in
Oh,
is
sure.
within view?
Sure, hold on.
So Dennis, on your screen, Rob is sharing a view. Over to the right, it says phone line. If you can use your iPhone to call in to that phone number, you'll be able to use your phone audio to connect.
Okay, can you hear me?
You might have that feedback issue.
Hold on, I gotta-
Or mute, can you mute him on the computer?
Does that work now?
Christie, I think he's gonna have to mute both right now. The problem is if, even if he mutes himself, it's still gonna pick up the feedback on the broadcast from the computer, and it's gonna come back through the phone.
Can't he join the way we did?
I think he's having a sound issue.
The microphone on his computer seems not to be working, maybe.
Hey Dennis, turn your volume all the way down on your computer. Your
Right.
Try that. Excuse me, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can hear you.
This is Bob Coy. I'm part of the proposal here with Dennis. If he can't join audio, perhaps I could speak through and answer questions. I know Dennis was planning on leading the discussion, but I certainly can participate.
Let's give one more shot here, if we can.
Sounds
Let's
good.
see if Dennis turns his computer volume down and just goes through the iPhone.
Okay, is this working now?
It is.
Hey, welcome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Woohoo!
all right.
I think we
Very
got it.
technical expertise.
Yes.
So, Rob, do you want to give an overview or should
Sure, I
Ms.
can give
Marie-
I can give a quick overview here. I have the view on the screen showing the parcels involved. Mr. Marino has submitted an application to consolidate two parcels that he owns with a portion of a parcel that Mr. Coy owns to create a new parcel with the intent of developing it as residential property on Soul Leather Lane. The view that's in the screen right now shows the two parcels have parcel numbers 931-09038 and 039. They're triangular shapes. These parcels were I call them kind of leftover parcels from the original Solar Lane subdivision that was implemented and built in the late 80s, early 1990s. This section where it says 0.46 AC, this little rectangle piece of land is part of the Coy parcel, which is 931090027 and 28. The Coy, Mr. Coy is also on the call here tonight, and they have agreed to sell this piece of land to Mr. Marino if, in fact, this parcel goes through to be created. Let's see, I sent everybody a review letter with all of the code requirements and the review and design standard requirements for the action today. The resulting parcel, if approved here, would be triangular in shape with the dimensions of 240.58 feet wide across the front, 221.63 feet wide across the back, 200 feet wide at the 50-foot front setback building line, and 158.39 feet deep on the south property line, and 42.27 feet deep on the north property line. The mean horizontal lot depth distance that we use for calculating lot compliance of this proposed lot would be 100.13 feet. And the Coy property off of Summit Street already has the required width. Their resulting depth would be 160 feet in width and 300 foot in depth, and they would meet their zoning code compliance for the Coy property. The piece, let's see here, the new parcel would be deficient in yard depth. We are in the R1 100 zoning district. Lot depth is required to be a minimum of 160 feet. So looking at the mean horizontal lot depth distance of 100.13 feet, they're roughly just over 60 foot shy of lot depth at that mean measurement. We also looked at under section 1161.05H4, minimum lot depth for subdivision requirements. Requires that no lot depth should be less than 1 1/2 times the width, unless otherwise determined by the commission. The lot width at the minimum building setback line, which is 50 foot, would be 200 feet. And the lot depth at the medium width is approximately 90 feet at that measurement. So the lot depth would be 210 feet under the code requirement under this section. So there's two code sections we use to look at conformance of the lot. Let's see here. We do have some revision, other code sections involved that were sent out, or 116107B, a revision of a plat after approval. Since this is a change to the original subdivision plat, any modification to that original plat has to be go before the Planning and Zoning Commission for review and recommend and vote. Also under 116104S subdivision regulations, minor subdivisions, talks about the approval process for lot splits and lot consolidations. And then I also listed the design standards under 116105H. That's kind of an overview of what we're looking at and why we're here. I do have some other support documentation that was all sent to the commission members. If you need any specific document brought up, I can bring that up. We did receive a letter from Mr. Lou Marino, the owner of the plots, talking about what his intent is in consolidating these parcels. And we also have copies of the original subdivision plat if anybody needs to see those. Is that a good review for you?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's, Mr. Marino, did you want to add anything in addition to that?
Yeah, the when this subdivision was approved it was actually like 1987. The intent was always 14 lots on Sullivan Lane. 12 were built. The remaining 2, we've tried to work out and resolve that situation with adjoining property owners over the ensuing 33 years and have just never reached anything that would work. So we're just want to, at this point, finish the street, resolve that issue. There are 2 existing sewer tie-ins and water tie-ins for those proposed 2 lots there. We just want to say just finish the project at this point after 30 plus years and resolve matters on the street. Yeah. So we want to put another nice house on that street that will benefit the village and the neighbors as well. And this is what we've come up with. This is our best option that we can come up with to do that.
So I guess in looking through the documents, it looked like, so there's some issues with the lot that would be created in terms of how that fits code. And then also, I guess, what kind of structure or the house that would be built here, how would it be able to fit code given the unusual shape and size of the parcel, I guess, is another concern.
You're showing the image on the screen now. What we've kind of proposed is we've got 20,000 plus feet that the code requires. We'd want to build a house compatible with what else is on the street, trying to minimize the footprint as best we can in the process. This is a plan we've come up with where we would need help with the backyard setback. We're showing a 30-foot rear yard, 50-foot front yard. We do have the garage encroaching a little, one corner of the garage encroaches in the front yard a little bit. And other than that, everything else would work. And that would be, like I say, comparable. That's actually a smaller footprint than most of the other houses. I think all the other houses on the street.
So the 30-foot setback is 30% of the depth that you have. But if the depth was what it was supposed to be, 160, then you'd be able to have the 50-foot rear yard setback that you should. Is that correct, Rob? Do I have that?
I believe so, yes. 50 foot's required or 30% of depth, whichever is less.
So if the lot is approved having this lower or reduced depth, they would not need a variance for rear yard setback. Is that correct? Because 30 feet would be 30% of the 90?
That's correct. That looks to be how it fits the code. Yes,
Does
yes, that's
anybody-
correct.
Does anybody else on the commission have anything they want to say at this point?
Do you have an approved plan for the house or just this outline footprint?
We have just, it's very tentative at this point. I mean, obviously, we want to get the lot approved before we invest a whole lot of money into a drawing. But I'm comfortable we can make that this footprint will work just fine.
And that lot appears to be higher. So would this house sit up higher than the rest of the houses on that street?
Not significantly, no. Actually, across the street, no, it'd be comparable.
Dennis,
It actually,
There was
the
that
rear
issue.
yard falls away. Pardon me?
I had a question on on the hillside there? I know that the lot 2 up had an issue with slippage, and there is a hillside there. Have you investigated that as far as soil and those concerns?
We have not. The house you're talking about, that was primarily caused by putting excess dirt on top of the existing hill. They improperly added fill and crushed the drainage pipe that was existing there, and the house never moved. It was the excess fill that actually moved. And I'm talking with Bob, when he did the repairs on that. And this is much less hillside on the back than that is, much less.
Okay. So it's
Wendy,
not as steep.
which parcel are you guys talking about for that?
75, which the address is
Two
75.
lots north of this one.
Two lots north.
Is that
Yeah.
The other way.
Can you show that, Harry or Rob?
It'd be this one would be 2 north, right?
Yeah, that's the one. And yeah, it would say the previous, one of the original owner added a lot of fill in the back of to try to create a backyard, and nature took its course.
Mhm. And it
But
has
there's
been
never, the
remedied.
joining house has never had a problem, and like I say, we would not be anywhere near anything, any kind of slope like that anyway, so.
But you do have to have that house tucked into the southwest east corner because of the way the
Southeast,
land
yeah.
is. I mean, it's kind
Exactly.
of, there's not much
It works
flat.
geographically, topographically, it works well, and because of the shape of the lot, it works well. So that's convenient that they both, coincide. It's a nice little area to put the house on, actually.
Mhm. What size, do I see that here? What size is the house going to be?
We're thinking, what everything else on the street there is 3,800 square feet is the ballpark of what I would expect it to be. Just, colonial with a built out over the garage.
Mhm.
And the driveway would come in from the
North.
So you wouldn't be going up that hillside.
No, it would be, we'd be a side load garage, so it would be coming in,
From the
it'd
north.
be kind of a, yes, exactly like that, right. Nice, follow the contour of the land that way, actually, so.
And then what's this 15-foot by 16-foot? Is that the main entrance you're proposing, or is that like a?
Well, that's just a little
Or-
front bump
That's-
out on the house itself, some architectural feature to give us.
Hold on.
Oh,
A
that,
sitting room
okay.
or something that's projecting on the front of the house.
I have a question about the hillside. Maybe it's for Rob, and the hillside was brought up recently. So the way that this, I understand it's not a formal plan, but the way that this drawing appears, can you, from your knowledge of the property, say if it would be an issue with the hillside ordinances that we have, or do you think because of the sighting of it, it's not?
I think this.
Or don't we
this-
know?
we don't know for sure, but looking at the siding, looking at the contour lines that go around the house, when they're closer together, that shows a more dramatic drop. When they're further spread apart, like this area is here, that shows that there's a flatter area there. So at first glance, it doesn't appear to be, but with all new housing plans, it requires a grading plan. And the
Right.
grading plan will be reviewed by us, our staff, as well as possibly the engineer, to make sure that it's, that the conditions of the hillside protection do or do not apply.
So
So-
what we're talking about now is looking at the site consolidation, but then the next step, if that were approved, would be to still require the plans to conform to all the things that the plans need to conform to.
Yes.
Thank you.
But I have concerns about creating a lot that, on which any reasonable house to be built would require a lot of variances for hillside or setbacks or whatever. So I feel like they're sort of tied together, even though we don't have an actual plan in front of us or exactly jurisdiction over that. But it seems hard to not think about how you're going to build something here if we create the lot.
Can I
anybody
ask
else?
a question, Patty?
Sure.
When you mention a lot of variances, are we I hear one variance. Is that right? Or am I missing something? You're saying in case there's a hillside related event, then that's another variance.
Right. And for this, it looks like it would just be the corner of the garage. Because I mean, the rear yard setback's a lot smaller than it would be if the lot was what it was
Right.
supposed.
But
But
if
We
the one
allow a
variance,
lot. If we allow a lot,
if we allow a lot, that's
it can fit that 30%.
so that's not a variance, right?
Correct.
I guess not, right, Rob?
Correct. The way I read the code, yes.
So the variance that we have, if we choose, is the garage corner?
Well, we have no idea if this is what's actually going to be proposed to be built, but for what's shown here, and assuming
Well-
that it doesn't fall under hillside regulations, then that's what it looks like, yeah.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was counting the variances that you were counting. So if there's a hillside issue variance, there might be two variances, the corner of the garage and the hillside.
Well, I don't know, the hillside probably wouldn't be a variance. They're just rules that they have to comply with.
Okay, so that's not even a variance then, Nancy, either?
Maybe not. But I
And
think,
the hillside, it's not a hillside situation, actually. I can, the contour there, that's just a little bit of a roll in the yard that we're sitting on top of it's a slight rise there. It's not anything near, if you even look across the street, the backyard's there and what we looked at up there. The hillside's not an issue. In that house design, I mean, that's something we're committing to. We're not going to exceed that. It's, we may do less. And that's with a 3-car garage on there. That's the only reason, because the majority of the houses on the street have a 3-car garage. That's that corner. That's what that's all about. And like I said, that's our commitment here. We don't want to come back any more than you want us to come back with anything beyond what we're showing.
Yeah,
May
I
I-
did notice, it's so funny, I went for a walk last week after getting these plans, and I did notice almost every house on that street has 3-car garages. I was like, wow. Chagrin Falls,
Yep.
3-car garages. I live in the village, in 1-car, 2-car, maybe 2-car garages here. So
May I say something?
Sure.
Wendy. So to confirm, you're taking 2 non-conforming lots and we're still creating a non-conforming lot? Is that true?
There,
Yes. I'd say yes.
actually, 3 parcels combined.
Still do not
Yeah,
make
that
a,
really all by themselves are nothing. I mean,
we're still creating a
ahead.
non-conforming lot with the 3 parcels.
yes, unfortunately, that's what, like I said, that's our best option here with, like I say, these are, right now they're nothing. I mean, these are $60 a year property tax combined, and, you know, we want to put something in here nice and get a house, finish the street where it's gonna have, like I say, be an asset to the village instead of a negative here.
So there were supposed to be 14 parcels at one point?
That was, yeah, I actually was reviewing the subdivision plans today. There are 14 sewer and water tie-ins on the street, and those
Where-
two pieces,
where are the other two?
08 and well, 038 and 039 were supposed to be the frontage for 2 additional lots. There's enough width there to, if we had the depth, which unfortunately we don't have, and at this point in time, we don't ever see that happening.
So were they thinking that they were going to get the one large parcel behind this at one point? Obtain
Looks like
that?
That's been the hope. So, and it has not worked out. So, you know, so let's say this, at this point in time, we just want to settle
see
for
what
what we
you're
have
saying.
and complete the street.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So about where number 11 or a little bit below it, you would have gone all the way back to the line that says 206, 205. Create,
Mhm.
right? Okay.
So Wendy, just to clarify, in the zoning review letter that Rob prepared, there were
Right.
the two ways that the created lot would not fit zoning would be with the lot depth,
Mm-hmm.
which is supposed to be 160 feet, and it would be 100. I saw-
158 and 42.
No, it would be 90-foot average, right, Rob?
Yeah.
So
here's-
the mean is 90, and it's
Okay.
supposed to be 160.
I see.
It's a pretty significant shortfall there. And then the other code section is in the subdivision regulations, 116105 H4, where it says that the lot depth can't be less than 1.5 times the width. So here,
Measured at the
they've
building.
actually got a lot of width here, but I think the code was trying to say, we don't want the bowling alley lots, and we don't want lots that are super wide and really squat.
Thin.
So just trying to keep the proportions, sort of, you know. So those were the two ways, I guess, in which the created lot would not fit code. And then in terms of the proposed house that would be built there, as Nicole pointed out, with what's shown here, it would just be the corner of the garage there encroaching on the front setback. And, you know, probably no hillside impact. So,
I'm sure you have this here, Rob, and I should have asked, how many acres are these 3 pieces together? Did you already say that?
I do have that. The part they want to buy is 0.46
Right.
acres, I believe. Dennis, do you happen to have that right off the top of your head?
I know to combine 3 parcels were, I think that's actually the one right there, shows it, if you scroll down to the bottom of that page, if you can do that, 20,000, yeah, it's a 20,000 minimum, and we've got 20,385, I believe, if I can, my eyesight works.
Yeah,
Right,
2385.
23.5.
You got the area, you know, the area isn't an issue with just the dimensions.
So it matches the area of all the other lots.
Yes,
It's just the shape is different. It's
exactly,
squatter.
exactly.
Oh, I thought it was even less in area. So it's not.
well, it might,
No,
we
no.
don't know what the area is of the other lots on the street. That's
And
just
the re-
what 20,000 is the requirement for R1 100 district. I don't know
Oh,
what
Okay,
area.
so but it meets the
Even-
R1 100.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I see what, thank you,
Yeah.
Patty. Thanks for the correction. The other lots might be bigger, but it meets the R1 100 as far as we're concerned, area wise. I know it's not the same shape, but it's the area.
Yes.
Mhm.
And Rob, I believe you told us notice was given to the neighbors, and I know you got and shared with us some input from some of the people on the street. I'm wondering about the contiguous properties that are actually West Summit, if we have had any input from them, or perhaps those are some of the people who are
Waiting to
attending
talk.
here.
They,
would
they
like
could be,
to-
I've not received anything directly. They could be some of the people waiting to talk.
Okay,
Notice was given to 3 property owners on West Summit, starting at Soul Leather going east, and all property owners on Soul Leather Lane.
great.
So is it correct, though, that
I
130?
have a resident, Mark Rogers, who raised his hand and asked to speak.
Okay, I have a quick question. The 136 West Summit is the parcel that's selling off a piece of itself. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. So presumably that person, whoever owns that property, is in favor of this.
That's Mr. and Mrs. Coy. He is on the meeting tonight, and he is one of the letters of support that I distributed to everybody today.
Okay, and I have one other question before the audience questions. If we were to approve this, are we saying that this is a buildable lot?
I believe so, yes.
Dale,
Yes.
Dale, can you advise on that? If
Yes.
we allow this lot to be created, is the village going to be required to allow it to be built upon?
Yeah, if you grant these modifications, then you would not have a basis from what we've heard so far to deny amending the plat when they come back for their plat approval as amended. And you would pretty much be stuck approving it unless, for example, we had a hillside problem and they couldn't get a variance or something of that nature. But based on what's presented so far, it would appear that they'll have a buildable lot.
Dale, may I ask a question?
Sure.
Regarding 711.17, where it says 2/3 of the proprietors have to approve a new plot, who are the proprietors?
Well, that would be the Coys and the Marinos.
Okay, so it's not the rest of the street.
No,
Okay.
it's just the people who have the land that's,
Okay, just wanted to clarify that. Thank you.
So if it's okay, can we hear from the audience members, Christy? Christy?
Okay, she's talking,
I'm
we can't
sorry,
hear her.
I still had myself on mute.
Okay.
Mark Rogers has been promoted to a panelist who had his hand raised, and all other attendees I have allowed to speak. So we'll start with Mr. Rogers.
Okay.
Mr. Rogers, would you care to contribute? We're not getting any response from Mr. Rogers. So are there any other attendees who would like to speak at this time?
Oh, hello?
Hello?
Yeah, hi.
Who's-
Yeah, this is Mark Rogers. I'm sorry, I was having
Mark,
a
what's your
technical
address?
difficulty. My wife Hope and I are owners of 120 West Summit Street and 68 West Summit Street.
Thank you.
120,
So
68.
120 and 68, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, 120 West Summit Street is the lot that is immediately to the east of the proposed consolidated lot. Our objection is that, you know, we think that the proposed construction would be a detriment to our property. It is a very wet portion of our property back. You can see as it slopes toward the ravine here. Basically, the water flows, you know, down from our house at 120 down the hill towards the ravine, and it is pretty swampy for a good portion of the year. We have had some soil stability issues back there, and we're concerned that basically any construction that decreases the permeable area on a lot adjacent or disturbs the soil
could potentially cause us some erosion problems. We've already had some issues on an adjacent lot off of Still Leather Lane with water runoff, and we don't want to see the same issue from new construction on this proposed lot. And of course, the second issue that we have is that this proposed house would essentially be directly behind our house at 120. We'd be looking right out the back windows and off the back porch straight at that house. So those are the two detriments that we would see to our property.
Mhm.
Can I just say, the water issue, there is a storm sewer on the street. Water, we don't divert water onto other people's property directly. So I don't think, it's going to go to the storm sewer on Still Leather Lane. I think Harry can verify that. So that's all that direction. So, and I believe actually, well, that's all I'm going to say right.
I'm sorry, which lots are yours, Mr. Rogers? I missed this one. Okay.
So this one, which actually connects to, if you see the property line that's directly east of the proposed consolidation, that is part of our lot. So we own the part that slopes steeply into that ravine, and actually 68 West Summit Street abuts that property. So to the east of that next line is also our property, including that ravine. The issues that we'd had with the previous construction, and maybe Dennis has addressed this issue, but we have a footer drain that comes off the back of the property that is immediately to the northwest of the proposed lot and our lot, that then goes back into the ravine and is causing erosion around it.
I am unfamiliar with, that's nothing, that would be on the Sadowski property. Is that what you're talking to the north?
Yes.
Okay, so that's going away from your property, isn't it?
Well, we also,
water flow goes to the north to the river from there.
It sort of nips the corner of our property before it goes into the ravine, and it does it's eroded the hillside at the point where it discharges.
Is that a Solither Lane house that you're talking about that has the footer drain?
Yes.
Shouldn't that be tied into the storm sewer, or is that something that was added post-construction or something?
Well, I guess it would have been built about 30 years ago. So I don't know what the ordinance were at that point.
It was, it's not uncommon, given the contour that the walkout basement, that because the daylight for the storm or the footer drains would be on that property. I was on that lot. If it's going off of that lot, I don't know what's happened in the ensuing 30 years, what's gone on there. And like I said, there was an issue where it was the drain was covered on that house next house north, and that's been resolved. And that house has never had any issues there. And we're, obviously it's entirely different situation with the yard grade and the size of that lot. We would have to be going into the city storm sewer. We can't, there's no other way to go. Everything would slope towards Still Leather and into that drainage area. There's nothing,
well, I think,
anything off the house would have to be tied in to the storm.
Okay, I think I see the backyard actually does slope to the east, though.
And like I said, that anything hitting the house is going to be caught in the gutters and downspouts and directed to the street to the west. And so in actuality, it probably reduced the flow going down the hill a little bit.
Okay.
And if footer
Well-
drains are installed, they would tie into that as well, or does that
Foot road
not?
drains go to the storm sewer, yes.
Yes.
So, sorry, Mr. Rogers, again, your property is the one, there's lots of different squares here. I can't tell what's one parcel. So you have, you have 120 has frontage on East Summit, or on West Summit. There's a
West
house
Summit,
there
right.
next to the Coys.
Right.
And then the same parcel is the part that would be directly east of the proposed lot?
Right. There's a jog in the property line. So it goes
Yeah.
back 300 feet from West Summit, then it jogs back, I think it's 75 or so, and then it goes back 206 from there.
And then you also have the parcel that's even further east of there?
Yes.
Okay.
And that parcel through another consolidation was added on to the back of a parcel from North Main Street. So we actually have the piece of property that's behind the Sadowskis as well.
Okay, is there anybody else that in the audience that has indicated that they'd like to speak?
I'm checking again.
Dennis,
All
did you,
audience members are unmuted. They can speak at will.
Feel free to chime in, anybody, if you wish.
Dennis, did you speak to the owner at 65? No.
I spoke to him today, in fact, and I thought he might be attending the meeting, but I don't see that he has.
Or 85, which is right next door?
I know I've spoke with the owners at 85, and so has Mr. Coy. They're fine. I think I presented. I don't know if you saw the letters I've got signed by everyone
Yeah.
directly across the street. That I
Yeah.
mean, in fact, 50. The owner of 50 has actually had a friend contact me about potentially buying the lot. So we don't have any opposition anywhere else.
So I was just curious about the east side. Looks like the west side's covered. That was just my question.
House on Solitaire that would be adjacent,
Yes.
is that what you mean?
Yes. Or the ones on that side. On the east side.
What's the number of that property?
85,
85 Solitaire?
I believe so, right, Dennis?
Actually, 65 is immediately north, and 75 is the house, the Albers home, and 85 is actually up on the cul-de-sac.
Oh, okay.
Third house up.
So there's 85, 65. Okay, I'm out of order. So
Starts
it's
at
60.
65, yeah, 65, 75, 85.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you for the clarification. So
So
65 is the
hear
closest.
65.
Yeah,
And that house looks like it's right on the lot line.
it's whatever was set at the minimum side yard at the time.
So have there been issues with slope failure anywhere in that area? The immediate area of the subdivision?
Other than the one instance where somebody, like I said, incorrectly added soil to the hillside, and that moved and they crushed their drainage in the process. That's the only issue on that street that I'm aware of. And we just were involved with another house on the opposite side, and I had an engineer out and looked, and he said the hill was fine. So. And like I said, this is nowhere near a hillside situation of any, really, it's as flat as any of the lots on the street.
It's up from the street, so the house will be.
It's up, yeah, it does rise up a little bit, but it's, it's not significant,
Right.
slope on there.
Dale, I have a
Yes.
question. If
Yeah.
if this was a new subdivision and we were looking at the land, what would be required prior to approval by planning and zoning? Would we need more engineering information, hydrology, things of that sort?
No, you wouldn't need anything more on hydrology.
But what
And-
about, yeah,
Are you assuming that the lot was going to be configured as we're seeing it now? With the three pieces put together?
yeah,
Yeah, we would be doing really the same thing we're doing right now, which is determining whether you would give a modification for what the zoning or subdivision rules would require. Here, the variances aren't zoning variances, they're all subdivision regulations that you're looking at. But you would be looking at soils, you'd be looking at hillside, and you'd be looking at the capability of being able to put in a road, things of that nature, which are all moot now because the roads and utilities are all in.
right. But this subdivision was approved with these lots not being this potentially new lot being built upon.
Although that's true, it looks to me like the planning commission at that time assumed that sooner or later some property would be added to it, or it would be sold to an adjoining owner and vacated from this subdivision so that no home would be built. I think it was anticipated that something was going to happen one way or the other. What we would have done today that they didn't do back then, they would have created these blocks and either said you got to make them common areas or you have to restrict them so that you can't do anything with them until you come back with some plan that would show how you could make it more conforming or selling it off to another owner.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean to a contiguous owner. Did I answer your question?
I think so. I mean, I think, I know from the past, people didn't know what that space was and knew it was owned by the development, thought it was green space, but it was not designated green space.
No, I looked at all of the
Right.
comments from both planning and zoning and council when the subdivision was created. And the only comments were to have a maximum of 14 buildable sites. There's no mention of green space whatsoever in any of the documents.
Mhm.
But when you talk about a maximum of 14 buildable sites, that was, I believe Mr. Marino said, with the assumption that they could acquire more land to make those extra 1 or 2 sites buildable. Is that correct?
You can assume that. It did not specifically state that. It just said that there was discussion of no more than 14 lots, and that's pretty much all it said.
So possibly it was anticipated that they would have purchased the Rogers property or whomever owned it at that time.
But the fact that they they drew it up having frontage and put in sewer and,
And
the developer might have been planning for 14, whether,
Here's the subdivision plat that's on record with the county.
So did you ever consider building a house on each of those lots, those respective small lots that are marked as Block A?
you couldn't fit a house in.
No, they're way too small, yeah.
I was just looking at the county auditor's information. The Sadowski house next door was built in 1988. I don't know how that house got built on that line, but we definitely had side yard setbacks in 1988.
That's number 12 here, Dale, what's showing?
Yeah, yeah, that's 65 Solither Lane.
Yeah.
That's the one just north.
Mhm.
Patty, does anybody else want to speak, or what would you propose we do next?
Were there any other audience members? Any audience members want to say anything?
Patty, I've unmuted all panelists and attendees. Lou
Okay.
Marino is raising a hand. I will promote Lou to become a panelist.
Great, thank you.
Lou, let us know when you're on so we can check your sound.
Okay.
Lou, can you hear us? We cannot hear you. From my end, Lou should be able to speak. I'm not sure if it's a choice not to or if there's a technical issue.
He might have to call in like Dennis did with his phone.
Could be.
I'm showing.
It looks like you're going back to the telephone number. Under phone line, there's a dial-in phone number that you can use for yourself, or a landline for that matter. Thank
well,
you, everyone, for being patient.
Is there anybody else while we're waiting with anything to say for
Well,
again?
I have a comment, and the plat isn't in front of us now, but when it comes back, I'm having a difficult time visualizing that original plot and what it looked like with the road coming through like that, with those two tiny parcels only touching at the point.
I think, Nancy, they had hoped to purchase whoever owned the Rogers lot and this lot, and it would go all the way back just as far as lot 12. But that didn't happen.
Yeah, I know. It just seems so odd that those two tiny parcels would have been left like that. I mean, they're
Well, that's all that they own, but they're the same frontage as the lots across the street. That's
Yeah,
how it was designed.
It's an odd shape to the whole parcel, though, when you try to picture that.
Yeah.
I know part of what my father, if he gets in, wanted to say is, I mean, that they've tried to secure that property since before just the planning stages of the project back in the 80s, and we've tried in the ensuing 30 years, and obviously we have not come to a meeting of the minds on how to go about doing that. And we want, that's what I say, we just at this point we just would like to have the street completed, get that resolution to the matter here, so to speak. Have a nice home there that'll be an asset to the village, just like all the other ones on the street. The street added a lot of character to the village, and we want to just finish it off. And this is our best option to do that.
the, the parcel, the owners of the parcel that's under consideration for consolidation with yours, have they owned that parcel for a long time?
I may
Right?
understand, you're talking the Coy's parcel?
Yes, we've owned that parcel for 9. Bob Coy speaking. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, we've owned that parcel for 9 years.
I'm sorry, since when?
9 years, so 2011.
2011.
Okay, good. So you bought it after the subdivision was in and developed?
Yes, ma'am.
did it come along as part of your main parcel?
It did.
Yes.
Yes, it was deeded as one property.
Dale, I have a question.
Sure.
I think there's concerns about erosion, slippage and the like. I know that with Cleveland Street, there were restrictions that we placed on the developer for that property. Can we put, I don't know, how can we say it, stipulations?
Yeah, you can put conditions on the
Conditions.
approval for the modifications, sure.
But what
You can also do that as part of the plat amendment. Let's assume they met all the requirements and they weren't seeking a modification. Even though they'd be in compliance, when you got the plat presented to you, if you could require some plat restrictions or some other types of restrictions as part of the approval.
Mhm.
I don't know what sort of restrictions we put here though, because they'd be so restricted in where they can put the house anyways, that, there's not, I'm trying to envision what we could do. I guess, they've got the 50-foot front setback, whereas they're cutting the 50-foot rear yard setback down to 30. So, I mean, I guess you could say shift the house further towards the street, so it's away from the hill going down into the ravines that would impact probably the other properties, like Mr. Rogers, but I don't know that 10 feet is going to make a difference like that. So I'm just trying to understand what sorts of conditions we could put on this to mitigate,
Or, yeah,
what you're thinking.
concerns.
Yeah.
Concerns by the neighbors in
Yeah.
their property.
Right.
Could we expect, in the event that we did approve this, when it comes back for the plat approval, could we expect a more precise house, maybe not design, but footprint, a more precise footprint for the house? And sort of lock that in?
I think if you're going to do that, yeah, I think you'd want to do that now.
I mean, like I'm saying, the footprint that we show, I mean, that's something we're willing to commit to.
And the Coys are fine having a house 10 feet off their property line, the wall of a house 10 feet off their property line, I assume, since they want to do this?
Yes,
They are, yeah, go ahead, Bob.
yes, this is Bob Coy. That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, but apparently the other neighbor is not okay with that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Rogers, I believe.
yeah, we have, I don't know how many, I mean, there's 12 other people on Soul Other Lane, the Coys, the other people on West Summit. So, and obviously none of them we have written support from some of them, and no other people are voicing opposition.
Right.
There were letters from 6 of the 12 submitted. So
Yes.
that's 6
One of,
properties.
and
So
90
50%.
is a relative, so she's not allowed to complain.
Oh, yeah, yeah. His sister lives at the end of the street.
Yes.
Hey,
Okay.
I think
Patty,
Miss,
this is Christy. Lou is raising his hand, I think in an
Okay.
effort to try and.
Okay.
Okay.
Lou, can we test your voice? Unfortunately, your sound is not coming through. There is a chat function as well if you'd like to type in.
Do you want the phone number again, Mr. Marino? Why don't you give him the phone number again, Rob?
Rob, if you could go over to the agenda, that would be great.
There you go, sir. 646-558.
Hold on.
There we go.
Hey, Dennis, who's doing the drawings?
I've
who's
been
your-
working, I don't have anyone confirmed. I've been working tentatively already with Gary Neola, who's also on the South Russell Architecture Review Board with me.
Okay, I didn't know if I don't know if your dad still does drawings.
No,
Okay,
he's too busy with his karaoke.
okay. Okay. Which doesn't translate for phone calls, but yes. Okay, I was just curious if having more information on what that house would be helpful.
Well, I think they're committing to the
Well,
only thing outside is that corner of the garage.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
heard
and
that.
I think I did the math. It's 1,500 square feet on that first floor. It's a reasonably sized house.
Do you know what height are you going? It's a 2-story? Is it?
Two-story, it'd be a colonial is what I'm envisioning there. Similar, and we have obviously set a tone on the street with the kind of houses that are there, and
Right.
that's we don't want to deviate from that significantly in any way. So just an updated, house that to fit with the neighborhood.
Did you build the Sadowski's?
Yes.
Okay, because
we
that's a
did
little
all
bit
the houses
different.
on the street.
Yeah, it feels different than the others.
That's I don't know over time, but we're all the same, pretty much the same oversight. My father's stamp was on all those drawings, so.
Mhm.
I can see Lou holding the phone to
I
his
can
ear.
see Lou too, but he hasn't
Yeah.
joined the meeting through his phone
Yeah,
call,
look,
has not registered yet.
it's too bad. I see him trying.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Lou.
Come on, Dennis, get out.
I mean, I know he's been a long time village resident. He was on the council. He was a president of the council. Actually, during the time this was approved, he was on council when this was approved. And he's got a long history with the village, and I think that's what he feels obligated to finish this project. And this is, like I say, again, our best chance to do that.
Rob, can you put the site plan that shows the topographic lines up again? Yeah. So like really the thought that Block A was ever going to be developable by going straight east is sort of hard to envision because of the slope there in the back of that.
Oh,
part.
I've built on worse, and actually, if you look at some of the other houses even on the street, there's some that are pretty close.
Right across the street looks pretty steep.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Yeah.
house is right up against where it starts dropping off. If you put a house right up against where it starts dropping off on this northernmost parcel, you wouldn't be able to have the 50-foot setback for sure.
Like I said, I grew up on East Summit Street, so I'm familiar with hillside homes.
Yeah.
And that's not that bad, really. It's a little different engineering.
And then I guess maybe it's not really relevant, but I'm just curious, Mr. Rogers, what your plan is, or are you liking just having nature back there, or is your intention to build further that on those parcels that you own?
This is Hope Gumprecht Rogers, and I will chime in here with some answers. I grew up at 120 West Summit, so that property has been in my family since the 60s. And 68 West Summit was my grandmother's property. They were actually contiguous part of an old dairy farm that included what's now Sandridge. We have always felt that the portion at the back of 120 that when Sandridge was originally platted, they hoped to one day purchase was too steep of a ravine to safely build on. And we also enjoy the larger lots and privacy up on this north side of town. So that is the main reason, the combination of reasons that we don't want to see it developed. We have felt that the village zoning code helps to protect that lot and the value of that lot and privacy by not permitting, per the code, construction that would have a house 30 feet from our side yard back there or 10 feet. And again, we have serious issues with erosion and runoff here. The soils are not entirely stable. There's a good deal of quicksand back in that area, which are exposed sand veins. That's a good sign of unstable soils. Those are our reasons. And yes, we hope to keep it undeveloped.
So it was,
Thank you.
were you approached, so when Stanridge was happening, was that also this land they tried to, or
My parents were approached at that time. We've been approached many, many times and made it generally clear that the land is worth more to us than it is to them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else, Christy, out there?
I don't see any other callers.
Besides Mr.
On the line.
Marino.
I know, he's still trying, and that's very frustrating. I'm sorry.
Maybe he could call Dennis
He
Marino
could
and
call, if
put him on speaker.
I have a cell phone and I'm on speakerphone. If he wants to call my cell phone, I can put him on speaker and he can join that way.
Or he can,
Or he could call, yeah.
Oh,
I can call Dennis
okay.
and have a,
Okay.
Yeah, actually, have him.
Okay, Lou, 440 80. Okay, 440 804 6001. Lou, are you on the line? Lou?
I wonder if his phone's muted.
Hey, Christy? Christy,
Yes.
I might have to call in. My phone's dying and I can't get the charge to work.
Okay.
So if that happens, bear with me.
Well,
I'm
did
trying to get
anybody
Ms.
else on the
Marino back.
commission have
Hi,
anything to say while we're waiting?
Dennis, can you conference call your dad?
He could actually call my office line and I could just have him on speaker on my other phone, my landline.
Do you want to call him, Dennis?
Wait,
Yeah, actually, maybe I'll give that a try.
I was not able to connect with him via cell. He tried me and I tried him back and we didn't have any sound.
Oh,
Huh. Can somebody drive over there, wherever he is?
Okay, let me try this.
I think Lou's on there now. Nope.
Is he?
Mm,
The
he's
secretary was.
Hear a phone.
Hello? Hello? Nope.
maybe
Hello,
your dad.
I'm back.
Oh.
I think I heard someone say hello.
You there?
I'm here. Who's there?
No, I'm trying to call through. I'm not having any luck either. I don't know what's going on.
Okay, thanks. No. All right, well, if there's nothing else that anybody has to contribute, does anybody want to make a motion one way or another about this?
Lou's holding up a piece of paper.
call Nancy.
Hold on, leave it up. I'm gonna try and do this. 239-209-0689.
Or it might be 0609.
Okay, I have Lou on speakerphone.
All right,
Good job.
okay. Yeah, I
Chrissy, you can't mute yourself.
okay. In 1966, I moved to a house at East Summit Street with my family of 4 kids. That was 54 years ago. 1975, I was divorced, remarried, added 2 more kids to the family, and all 6 of them, plus 7 grandchildren, were graduates of Chagrin Falls High School. 1979 to 1985, I was elected to the Chagrin Falls Council and served as president from 1983 to 1985. 1992, I was elected as the president of the Chagrin Falls Chamber of Commerce. 1980, I developed the extension of May Court, a neighborhood of 26 homes, and I moved my family to a new home there and lived there for 14 more years. Then in 1991 is when I developed Soleather Lane and moved there and lived there until 2014 when we sold our house to my daughter and moved full-time to Florida. All right, now you got all that stuff. From the very first day we started this project, we have attempted to secure the land for the final 2 parcels, which was approved for 14 lots at that time. Through many negotiations to secure additional property with no avail. Now, over 33 years later, we have finally have a proposal to add 1 more lot. And you can be assured that any home built on that lot will be another asset to the Chagrin Falls community, as all the other homes were that we have built since 1980. I know that tax value is not a valid reason to ask for a variance, but consider our developments have added millions of dollars to the revenue of Chagrin Falls and to the schools tax base over the last 40 years. So I'm going to ask you to approve this proposal and finalize this saga of Soul Leather Lane. Now I'm here to answer any questions beyond that. Some of the questions here is regarding the house and the land around it. It's set on the southeast corner. It gives it a lot of room, front, back, side. Complies with the setback line, the 10-foot setback line on the side. Complies with the front setback line. The 30-foot rear line is a variance, but we're backing up to, I don't know how many acres back there, 5 or 10 acres of swampland, you know. So I don't think there's an issue there. The Rogers are maybe concerned about the issue, but there is really not an issue with our house. And beyond that, I can answer any other questions you want. We had, you know, as far as the soil and all that stuff, and the drainage, all that was engineered when we developed this property. We didn't just cut a street, and we had to have engineering approvals, the whole soil test, the whole thing. So everything was built in conformance with the code. Yeah. Anybody have any other questions?
I don't. Did anybody have questions? Marino? Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much for
Yeah, that's great.
enduring that frustration and getting on to share your experiences.
Thank you very much for hearing me.
Christy, should we end that speaker call or mute it or something? Because there's a lot of feedback, or I'm hearing a lot of feedback. And I guess,
Luke, is that better, Patty?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. I mean, I don't want
sounds a
to
lot better.
take him out though, so. Sorry, I don't know how to handle that. I guess he can hold up another sign if he wants to speak again. I don't know. Okay, anybody else on the commission want to say anything?
So it looks like this house is proposed to be built completely on the lot that's being purchased to add to the 2 original parcels from the subdivision.
Yeah.
Just a little sliver of the front porch would probably be on the one parcel.
Yeah.
The other, but yeah, you're right.
And tell me again why it needs to be, to have only a 10-foot setback from that southerly line?
The side yard under R1 100. Let me get to that. Side yard setback minimum footage in R1 100 with an attached garage is 10-foot minimum each side, and a total of 24 feet total. So 10 foot meets the code on that side as long as there's 14 foot on the other side, which there clearly is. So that meets requirements.
Right, but could it potentially be moved over further away from the Rogers property line?
It could be moved over. The problem is then the house would extend further into the front yard setback. And they would need a variance at that point. More so than they already do with this corner of the garage. So if you say you moved it over another 5 or 10 foot, with this exact footprint, this would come 5 to 10 feet over. You could possibly do it and keep it with the same variance, with the same footage of nonconformity. It'd just be a little more square footage that would be over the 50-foot front setback.
Yeah, because that house would be on a hill. There's definitely a hill there. So it's up from the road.
Yeah.
But Nancy, might I point out that that the height of that house will be probably roughly the same as the home at 120 plus Summit. And currently that house is actually vacant. They may move back in, but there's several other homes that are much closer to this house than that one.
Rob, can you scroll the screen down towards East Summit Street? Okay, thank you.
Is that good?
Yep. Or zoom out. Yeah, there you go.
This is all the rear portion of the property at 120 and the lot that extends in the back. That's all wooded as well, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, that's my question. The way the house sits, the Rogers house sits on this plat, is that where it is and how big it is today? So it's not, there's half of that lot behind it that's wooded and is that correct?
I will bring it up and show everyone.
Yeah, do you have a satellite picture?
It's not entirely wooded, but the back part certainly is.
Everybody able to see that okay?
No,
Nothing.
it's still showing the topo map.
Right.
Oh, okay.
I know you sent
Maybe.
us satellite images.
Yeah, I think, let me find what document I had that in. Hold on.
There you go.
There it is.
That looks even farther towards Summit than on the
And
plot.
the houses will give you some perspective. Yeah.
Okay, but the koi, the small piece that says koi, that's where the house will sit. I see. Okay. So it's
should be roughly right here.
right, because it's 30 feet from the back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So the depth of that piece of property, it's got to be, okay, So it'll be right there. It does sit behind that house.
They will
But
see
the-
the house from their house.
But you said that's trees. Is that trees that we're looking at?
Yeah,
This
the
is where they-
brown.
Okay,
This is all trees, yes.
All wooded lot there.
a wooded lot.
So the house, the proposed house, wouldn't be able to have any sort of decks off the back or any sort of, I guess they could just have a regular, just backyard of hillside, I guess, right? Or,
Right, anything they'd have to propose, we'd have to look at in regards to the code as far as if they wanted a patio and stuff like that.
I'm just thinking of disruption, disruption on the hillside further to the east to install, you'd probably need retaining walls or something to make a flat area for a patio. Because isn't it right? Like if they had a deck, it could only extend 3 feet into the required setback. Do you agree with that, Nancy? Or anybody else on P&Z?
I'm looking at the end of the code right now.
Oh, I thought we had like all architectural projections.
It says,
Yeah, not a
here-
whole deck though.
it says here structures such as porches, balconies, platforms, decks, patios, and similar architectural projections that exceed 48 square feet shall meet the setback requirements of the main building. So if it's over 48 square feet, it would have to meet the same rear yard setback as the house. But if it's under that side,
The 6x8 we had as sort of an entrance feature type porch.
Yeah.
So I'm just thinking, typically, especially if you've got the garage and driveway going off to the side, there's really not going to be any opportunity to have any outdoor living space in the back, which I guess, whoever buys the house would just need to be aware of that.
Well, I guess they could have it on the side. There's that whole small lot there that's basically vacant. That
Well,
whole
that's
area.
where the garage and driveway was going to come in, but
Well,
yeah, you put something there, but it would be a little unusual.
There'll be a significant amount of green space on the north end.
Right, yeah.
So the
Anything else?
could we
Wendy,
go back
is
to
it
the
you?
other view
yeah.
Which one?
with the topography lines?
Rob, do you have that?
what was that? What was the question?
What we were
Can we go
looking
back
at
to
before.
the topo map?
Topo map.
Right.
Hold on.
Yep.
Hold on.
Does anybody think it makes any sense to have it closer to the street, the proposed house? Or that would not be in keeping with the rest of the street?
Honestly, we considered that, and that was our take, that we're keeping from the Soldier Lane side, the setback consistency was probably more important.
Plus, you wouldn't be on that flat plane that you have at the site use.
Right.
Yeah, like again, it's the grade is, it's, those lines are wide enough there that it's not really that big a deal.
Judy, do you have any comments?
No, no other comments. I mean, I have the same concern that we've talked about previously about the house siting on the lot, and your question about a deck or a patio, I hadn't even thought of. So we're already, you know, sort of at the maximum coverage, even with a little variance, and then any outdoor. I mean, it would, there's plenty of green, I agree with that, but that's maybe different than somebody wanting to come and have outdoor space. Mr. Marino, let me ask one last question. Is your intent
Sure.
to build a spec house on this property, or to find a buyer? And then if you find a buyer, is it likely that they're going to say, okay, but I need to have a deck or a patio or anything else that's out of conformance?
Well, obviously, I'd like to have a buyer for it, but again, we're, you know, the limitations on the lot are going to stipulate, and between what we're looking at now and what the code requirements are, will dictate what can be built.
Right.
So, I mean, there's going to be obviously some limitations to that, and that's part of the package.
And I'm confident, the reason I ask is I'm confident you understand that, but we have had many instances where a new buyer doesn't, you know, sort of doesn't agree with, or doesn't understand or whatever. So I was just trying to think about that.
I've been building in the village as long as the streets, longer than the street's been here. So I'm very familiar with that process.
Right.
Dennis,
Thank
do
you.
you envision removing a lot of trees, or do you see it as a wooded lot house?
Always want to leave as many trees as we possibly can. I mean, that's always a big plus. So you have to have enough that to get the house in and not create a problem down the road for a homeowner as well. But, you know,
And a road,
take out as few as we can and then put some more back in when you're done.
okay, because that does help with staying erosion.
Like I said, actually looking at the contours on this, it's a fairly flat spot that we're putting the house. And again, the water's going to be directed to the west instead of to the east. As far as, you know, shrubs and, you know, land, we're not going to leave. I mean, there's code requirements for erosion control. When you build a house, Harry might chime in, but we have to do things, you know, in the construction process, and landscaping part of it.
Yeah, he's gonna have to go through a extensive engineering review with the hillside ordinances, stormwater protection, grading, you know, that's all gonna be reviewed by not just the village engineer, but the architecture review board is gonna want to look at grading and stuff like that as well, so.
Yes.
Nicole, Nancy, anything else?
Yeah, I don't know.
I have everything I need. Thank you.
Nancy, are you good?
Yeah, I think so. I think I'd still like to see that house moved over more, but
Move to the north.
yes.
The adjacent property on the Coys, there is actually a pool, closest thing in that corner of their lot. And again, we got woods on the Gumprick property that, again, I say is currently unoccupied.
the structure, so that's not a building at the north end
That's a
of
pool.
that's a pool.
Yeah, that's a pool.
What, this is the pool or this is over here?
Down.
No, that's
down.
a house.
That's down.
Pool,
Yes,
pool
okay.
Right through, yeah, there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. That's the pool.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
it's got a wooden fence around it. I went for a
Yeah.
walk. It's got a
Yeah,
wooden
it
fence
does.
around it back
Okay.
there.
Got it.
Yeah.
So Dale, we need to make a motion in the affirmative. Is that correct for this
Yes.
or?
Yes.
Okay, so do we state any reasoning or anything other than,
Yes.
what's
Yeah.
that?
Yes. you
At the
should
time of
state,
making the motion or at the time of the roll call?
time of making the motion.
Yeah.
Okay. Would anybody like to make a motion? All right, I guess I will, I'm not sure how to do this, Dale, because I would have to move to approve this, but I would be voting against it. So do I state my reason?
Well, you're allowed to make a motion in the negative.
Okay, that's what I didn't understand.
You can move to deny and give your reasons as well.
Okay. So this is just me, but I would move to deny this because I just feel like we have a zoning code that exists for a reason, and I like to uphold the code that has had a lot of work and history gone into it. And I feel like as much as it'd be great if they had the land to build these 2 additional houses or 1 additional house, but they don't, and they've tried for 33 years to get it, and it's unfortunate, but they don't own that land. And I feel like the property owners that are adjacent do have some rights, and they have, of course, you can't prevent building on adjacent lots, but you should be able to expect that adjacent lots should be held to the same standard and have to conform to our zoning code. And I just feel like by having the depth of this lot, 90 feet instead of 160, that's a pretty significant difference. And it'll result in a rear yard setback that's 30 feet instead of 50 feet, which I feel like will impact the Rogers property and the natural land back there. And, it's not for us to say whether that impact is important or not, if it's uninhabited, or what they're going to do with their land in the future. So I feel like they can still go to Board of Zoning Appeals, and the Board of Zoning Appeals is the place to ask whether the zoning is not appropriate in this situation. Yeah, so that's why I would move to deny this.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
And that's Feniger. All right, ready for the roll, Madam President?
So Dale, if you vote.
You need to
for
take
this, if you're-
discussion.
Okay. Discussion on the motion?
I'll say that I disagree. I feel that because it meets the minimum, these are large lots, and it meets the minimum size, it might not be as deep. I think it meets everything except for the corner of the garage. So I guess that's all I need to say.
Am I allowed to comment on this point or?
No.
No? Okay.
No, it's between the board.
Nancy, did you want to comment? I'm
No,
just going,
I have no other comments.
Wendy,
No. This is a
Judy,
tough one.
No.
okay, Dale, I think.
Now your question?
My question was, so when you do the roll call here, if you vote yes, you're voting to deny. If you
Correct.
vote no, you're voting to approve the lot consolidation.
Well, you may or may not be, but you're not voting to deny. There is
Okay, so-
another option, so.
Right.
But yes, essentially, if they vote yes, that means they agree that the request should be denied.
Okay, thank you.
What did you mean by another option? Dale?
Well, there could be approval with conditions or approval without conditions.
But there would have to be another motion after this motion is,
Correct.
okay.
What do you mean? What do you mean by that? That there would have to be another motion if, so this motion has to go through and then we could,
If there's
Or
not three
conditions?
votes, if there's not three votes to deny the request,
okay,
then another motion needs to be made.
okay.
Makes sense.
Mhm.
Is everybody comfortable doing a roll call? I guess I take that as a yes, or we'll be here all night.
I think we lost, did we lose Rob?
I'm here, ready to go. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Yes.
he's
Yeah.
switched to a different phone, I think. Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Okay, we're ready. Rogoff,
I knew you were gonna call me first. No.
Palozzi,
No,
Feniger,
Aye.
Davis,
No,
and Baker.
Aye.
3 noes, 2 yeses. Motion fails.
okay,
No,
so I
no,
guess I need to make a motion.
Right, somebody does.
Yes. I move to make a motion in the affirmative of allowing the lot combination. I appreciate everybody's comments and the time they've spent to express their concerns as well as their trials over the last 30 years to make something happen here. If the lot did not meet the minimum lot coverage for the R100, I would have been in the same league as Judy and Patty. The depth of the lot at this time, I think is immaterial. I also believe that I trust that the Marino's commitment to keep it within the zone requirements, except for that corner of that garage, it will enhance this beautiful community and give one more residence to the Chagrin Falls district to pay taxes and add to the community that we have here. So my only stipulation would be that they maintain what they promised here tonight, and that the only thing that it goes against the code is that corner of that garage.
Are you saying, Nicole, that the house should be built as cited on the plan submitted to you?
Exactly, Dale. I'm saying that the house is built as cited on the plans.
I thought so.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Okay. Ready for roll?
Well, you could take discussion on the motion if
Anybody,
you
Well,
wish.
anybody want
discussion.
to discuss that motion?
Any adjustments or suggestions that I missed?
I'd say there,
No, you spoke well.
do we need to stipulate that all water runoff will be directed into the storm sewers and not to the east hillside? Or is that a given?
I think that's a given.
You could put it in the motion, but when that comes
Yeah.
before ARB, that's what the ARB looks at with the village engineer.
Okay.
Do you accept that addition to your motion?
I'll accept that addition for everybody's peace of mind, yes.
So, got it.
If there's no further discussion, we can try to do a roll call.
Feniger,
No, I'm trying to make sure so a no to this is the
To den-
opposite of a no to the other one. So no.
Davis,
Wendy, are you there? Uh-oh.
You're muted, Wendy. You're still muted. Oh, there you go.
Aye.
okay. Aye for Davis. Baker,
No.
Rogoff,
Aye.
and Pelosi.
Aye.
3 yes, 3 ayes and 2 noes. Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for all your input and
Just so everybody knows, this does not have that 15-day provision where it could be petitioned in front of council. It does not apply here.
Got it.
Yes.
can it be appealed by an opposing party such as the Rogers if they
Yes, yes,
so they would contact the village about doing that if they wanted.
right.
Okay.
There's a provision in 116107F,
Yes.
and they can file an
Right
appeal
here.
to the Board of Zoning Appeals pursuant to Chapter 1111.
So we go to BZA.
Correct.
Otherwise, a new plat comes back to us is the procedure.
Yeah, before they could
Yes.
get a building permit, they'd have to have the plat amendment approved.
And does that happen after ARB and the variances for the house?
It could happen at any time.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if they get final approval from ARB, they could condition that on the plat amendment being made. But if I were the Marinos, I'd be coming in with my plat amendment as soon as I can, so because it takes a little bit of time to get that done, and then it's got to go to the county for review and approval also.
Okay. Is everybody settled on this? Right. Okay. Should we move on to the next agenda item, which in speaking to Nancy, it sounded like it's a text change in the code, sort of an inadvertent conflict in the code. But I don't think it's something that you'll address in council anyways for a while, Nancy, because it requires public hearings. Is that correct?
Well, that's partly correct, but I think rather than take a very small part of the lighting chapter, we have been reviewing it. And we spent a lot of time on it at our last meeting. And I think that Julie has an updated version for us. So I'd like to take a look at, I mean, this could be added to that. And I think Julie did maybe make some suggested fixes to this section, but I'd like to take a look at it in conjunction with the entire 1150 review and get that whole thing done together at one time, not take a little piece of it.
Yes, this change is from the draft that we're reviewing on that 1150. It's been pulled out of that. So all of our drafts of 1150 have this proposed revision in there. So when we see the whole thing, it'll encompass this revision as well.
Yeah. And then in the meantime, I think Wendy's probably still here, but Wendy talked to somebody who does lighting and said that the, what is it, 70,000 lumens, whatever that huge number was, is very bright and needs to be revisited.
Yeah.
So
our thought that was ridiculously bright is real.
Right. I'd have to find my notes. You know, I'm out of town, so I don't have.
Yeah, that's all right. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but it's definitely there and something that we need to consider, changing when we, when we're going to finalize that section.
Right.
And I just feel like we should do the whole section at once and be done with it.
Right. But there is I think like in March, like with days before we had to cancel our March meeting, I had sent to Rob the latest draft, and it did try to address some of those wattages and numbers. So maybe even though we don't have our next date that we're going to be looking at this, at some point, maybe Rob can send that out to everyone.
Yes.
They can be looking at it.
Yeah, sorry.
Yep, we can send that out.
Yeah, I think it would be
Lost
helpful
track of where that was. So
I know it's kind of hard to keep track of it.
yeah. So Rob, you have something from like early March from Julie?
Yes, I have the latest revisions he sent me, and I can send that out tomorrow.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, and then we can.
I don't know when you'll see it on your agenda to really discuss, but since it is a complicated subject, it might be helpful for people to have it and start looking at it.
Right. Yeah.
Were you referring to the 3,000 lumens in 1150.03A5? Is that what you were saying?
I think it's like 7.
I think it was a bigger number than that, Dale.
Like
There was
7.
another section that had a 75,000.
Oh, that's in
Yeah,
B.
yeah.
Yeah, B3.
Right.
All
that-
exterior lighting shall not exceed 75,000 lumens.
and he says it's more like 700.
Yeah, that must have been a typo or something.
Did Dale
We-
put an extra 0 on that?
No, we got that from CT Consultants.
Maybe it's some commercial standard or something for.
Well,
for
I think some of the things that I found on it, the 75,000, one of the first things I did was punch that number into the codification service, and that same wording came up in other codes. That
With the
same
same
number,
number?
75,000.
But maybe
So-
they were in conjunction with a shopping center or something.
Well, there are in that, when you see that March draft, I do have some notes in there.
Okay.
I can't remember what I wrote in March, but
Yeah.
I did address it. I'll refresh my memory tomorrow and look it over to you.
Yeah,
It makes
let's-
sense to look at that along with this at the same time.
Yes,
Unless
yeah.
there's absent any reason that there's a hurry on this, I would prefer to do that.
Okay, that sounds okay. So we'll all get that from Rob, and we'll
Yep.
be posted on what else is coming along for what will be June, I suppose, right?
Yes.
Anything else we should be aware of, Rob and Harry?
No, I think you got enough.
Okay,
Yeah, we'll make you aware of anything as it comes up.
okay, sounds good.
Okay, thank you.
So can we'll be adjourned then.
All right, and thank you, everybody, for a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
All the
Thank you.
help, Christy.
Thank you.
Thank you
Christy,
to the
Thank you,
Marinos.
Thanks for setting it up.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, Christy.
Christy, thanks for the organization, and Rob for handling all the materials. I might
Yep.
like these kinds of meetings better than
Yeah.
face to face.
No,
You can really see the materials, can't you?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And so can the public. It's
We're
great.
not shuffling papers.
Right. It's great. Okay.
All right. Good night,
Yeah.
everybody.
Good
Thank
night.
you to everyone
Good
that
night, thanks.
persevered. Yeah.
Great. All right. Thank you much.
Mhm. Yeah.